This is AM Agenda. Thanks for your company. With me this morning, Josh Frydenberg and Ed Husic. Josh, Tony Abbott is going to make his first visit, overseas visit next week to Indonesia. That's been confirmed by President Yudhoyono's office. His spokesman, though, saying that standing by their criticism of the coalition's policies on turning back boats, on paying Indonesian fishermen for intelligence and to buy their boats. It's quite a bit of work to do, isn't it, to try and to smooth over those tensions?
Look, Kieran, this is an important visit by Tony Abbott, and he's sticking to his promise to make his first visit to Jakarta, to Indonesia, and that's very important. And I'm very confident that he and Julie Bishop, David Johnson, our Defence Minister, and Scott Morrison, our Immigration Minister, will develop very good working relationships with the Indonesians. Very much like John Howard did, Kieran. I mean, when John Howard was in office, he dealt with 5 Indonesian presidents. He started off with President Suharto, then President Habibie, then President Wahid, then President Megawati Sukarno Putri, and finished off with SBY, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. And so that's 5 Indonesian presidents that he dealt with during very difficult times. I mean, we had the tsunami issue, the Asian financial crisis, obviously East Timor, and the tragedy of the Bali bombings. And I think Tony Abbott has seen what John Howard and Alexander did when they were in office and the importance of the Indonesian relationship, and he's going to carry on in that vein, and that means working very effectively with them on the critical issue of border protection.
Well, that's not a bad track record, is it, Ed Husic? The close relations established under the Howard Downer leadership in terms of foreign policy, particularly in the wake of the Bali bombings, with the AFP and the Indonesian police working so closely together to crack down on Jemaah Islamiyah.
There needed to be quite a lot of work there on that really critical event in terms of Bali, which had such a devastating impact. But I'm not willing to give John Howard all the credit, and certainly Tony Abbott learning from John Howard. And here's why. I mean, Tony Abbott's already demonstrated that he will basically push his policy regardless of what his neighbours think, be it on turn back the boats or this disastrous policy in the making in terms of this boat buyback scheme that they've got, having all the signals in the world from the Indonesians that don't like it. John Howard got chipped. One of the big things he got chipped about was he described himself as the deputy sheriff to the US in the region, which set us back in the region in our relationship with our key neighbours for years. So I'm not going to have historical revisionism about John Howard's role in the Asia-Pacific when he led with that, and then you've got a Prime Minister-elect who is now intent on enforcing and imposing his views about the way that a complex regional issue that needs a regional cooperation is forcing a simple issue on a complex matter, regardless of his neighbour. So
he's going there to have the talks, Ed.
Yeah, he's going to go have the talks, and he's been told countless times, Kieran, that the Indonesians do not want to have a bar of the policy that they're putting forward. It is not the way.
Josh,
it is not the way to sort this out.
Look, the Indonesians will work very closely with us on border protection because there's a lot of mutual interests. And we won't talk down to the Indonesians, and we won't come up with ideas without proper consultation, which was a hallmark of the Labor government. I mean, Kevin Rudd was a disaster, both as a Prime Minister and as a Foreign Minister when dealing with Indonesia.
But isn't that what you've done? Because they've said they don't want the turn back. And now you're going there to say, OK, sorry, we're going to do this anyway.
The point about the turn back
Julie Bishop earlier in the week said to me on this show that we're not seeking permission, we're seeking understanding.
Which is absolutely right, because
we're
not breaching Indonesia's territorial integrity. We're talking about turning back the boats at those international waters or at the edge of the Australian waters. And that's an important policy point to make. We don't need Indonesia's approval for the turn back the boats policy.
Wow. Let's move on to the campaigning that continues.
Jeff Shorten's a very good candidate. He's a great communicator. He's someone who I've...
Easy, some comments made from last night. Here, have a look. OK, we don't have that. You've heard a bit of it, but we'll get back to it in a moment. Ed Husic, it has... this process it was criticised by Stephen Conroy even before it began as being too sloppy, leaving a leadership vacuum. What's your sense? Is that the broader mood in the party, or are most people on board with this?
Again, the difference between our side and theirs is we can have different views, and it doesn't mean that the show falls apart or that you have people targeted in the way that a new Abbott government seems to be targeting dissent in its own ranks. But with ours, I think the process of selecting the leader has been greeted very enthusiastically by rank and file members that I've spoken to in the last week, who appreciate that they'll now have an opportunity to have their say. And I think this is a really good process for people to engage in. I've been very supportive. I supported it from the get-go, because I think it also requires the people that are putting themselves forward for leadership to outline their agenda, their views, and where they think they'd like to take the party. So I think it's been good in that respect. It's early days. We'll have things that need to be sorted out, but I think overwhelmingly people are very happy with the chance to have a say.
Is it inevitable that all parties head in that direction, opening up to the rank and file membership? Because it seems from last night there were 500 in attendance at the Anthony Albanese function in Sydney. It seems like they're embracing it and the chance to have a say in who's going to lead their party.
Well, there's no move to change our existing arrangements in the coalition, and we do have our branch members very involved, particularly in our pre-selection of our candidates. We have, for example, in my home state of Victoria, we have plebiscites, so you can get 600 plus people at a pre-selection that can go for half a day with numerous candidates of high quality battling it out, and that's a real grassroots strategy to involve our membership, and it works very effectively.
Do you think all the major parties need to embrace their rank and file membership even more when it comes to leadership issues as well?
Well, I probably see other states other than Victoria moving towards plebiscites for the pre-selection processes, but in terms of selecting our leader, we're very comfortable with the process we have at the moment, and it's produced a great leader in Tony Abbott.
Ed Husic, I'm not sure whether you've said who you're going to back yet, but are you willing to indicate that this morning?
Well, I've certainly, in terms of the whole leadership issue, my take is that we have an opportunity now. Obviously, we've gone through the period of Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard, and we've had a generation of leaders that have been there, and I think we now have an opportunity to take a shift and a new. You need to be able to refresh the outlook that you have on leadership. My criticism with the Abbott ministry is it has too many people from the 90s that are now here in this decade having an influence on policy. So from my perspective, you do need to have a break, and it's why I'll be supporting Bill Shorten, because I think he brings a fresh set of eyes, and he's had a period in the public eye as well he's been sort of working his way toward leadership, and I think he'll be someone that will definitely take our party forward.
It looks like there might be a divide between what the caucus says and what the rank and file says. Apparently Bill Shorten says he's already got a majority of the caucus. Does that, if Anthony Albanese does win then overwhelmingly with the rank and file, does that undermine the authority of the person that is chosen?
I think it's too early to make predictions on the vote, particularly in terms of the rank and file vote. And from what I've seen so far of both, and takes nothing away from either candidate, they've been working very hard, as you can see already, in terms of securing the support of the rank and file. And you've seen obviously the vision of Anthony Albanese talking to a packed hall last night, and Anthony is very popular within the rank and file. But I also know that Bill Shorten has been ramping up his effort and is going around the country as well. So it'll be a very good contest.
Finally, Josh, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you, why is it okay for Dennis Napthine to rely on the vote of a tainted MP, Jeff Shaw, now actually charged in Victoria, when it was not okay for the Gillard government?
Well, in terms of Jeff Shaw, Kieran, let that play out before the courts. He's charged and he's got a case to answer there, so I'm not going to comment on that.
But should Napthine not take his vote now that he's been charged?
Dennis Napthine is doing very well in Victoria. His popularity's gone through the roof. He's done a lot of very good policy work, and he's getting on with the process of governing, and you can't compare that to the chaos and dysfunction that we saw with the Gillard and Rudd government.
We're out of time. Josh Frydenberg, good luck today, and Ed Husic, thank you.
Thank you very much. See you later.
A quick break, we'll be right back.